1.6 birth rate doesn't seem bad, does it? It's like it's
Mhm.
only, less than 1 point below what we should be having. So it doesn't seem like it's going to make a difference. But that difference
Right.
is seen in the graphs in the matter of 40, 50 years, which isn't that long. So do you want to
Um,
just actually talk us through what does
yeah.
that 1.6, for example, because I think 1.6 is the UK's birth rate right
Yes.
now.
Yes. Yeah. So no, you're right. This is kind of the stuff I love talking about. So just because it's not that, and not because it's data, it's because it's data that really is not well understood, and the reason is it's just very unfortunate that we've come up with the kind of systems that we have to try and explain birth rates. I really have a very strong disliking for this number, the fertility rate. I think this number is responsible actually for us really not understanding a lot of what's been happening around us. Um, and one of the reasons is, as you hinted, it seems like one step to go from 1.7, say, to 1.6, another step 1.6 to 1.5. But these steps are not equal distance at all. Things accelerate rapidly. So if you look at take a curve, and this is actually a very stretched curve. It's very unusual, very stretched curve if you plot this out. And if you look at birth rates of around 2.0, very close to what we call replacement level, when people have two children to replace themselves into adulthood, it's 2.1 is the number somewhere close to 2.1, because unfortunately not everybody does make it into adulthood. Most do. But if you take a society with a birth rate of around 2.0, there aren't many these days, but if we take one of those, births would be halving in something like every 800 years. So it's a very small gap below the replacement level, and over many centuries, births would halve. Nothing to worry about. But you go down to 1.9, and that rapidly goes down to, I think it's 270 years. And then it goes down to 100 years, and then down to 60 years and 50 years. And if you get down to where South Korea is today at zero point 0.8, births in South Korea are currently halving every 19 years. Now, that's frightening, because societies cannot re-engineer themselves anywhere near quickly enough to cope with that shrinkage. And a reduction in children, why does that matter? Well, a few less schools, of course. Um, but once those people become absent in the workforce, that's when you see societies really catastrophically crumbling, and communities, housing, crumbles, because there aren't enough people to live in the towns to pay the taxes to maintain the roads. You get a really catastrophic end to societies. I mean, we really need to kind of see this for what it is. Now, let me just come back to South Korea and that example of halving every 19 years, and then we'll talk about the UK. If you are halving at that rate, it means that a uh, a person today who becomes a parent and then a grandparent and a great grandparent, if you take 100 of those people, 100 people today
Mm-hmm.
will result in only 4 or 5 great grandchildren. We're going from 100 down to 4 or 5. And
Wow.
that's happening right now, today, in one of the most advanced countries anywhere. Now, in the UK, that halving is around, I believe it's around 60, 65 years. Now, compared to South Korea, that sounds wonderful. And it is, we do have a little bit more time, but this is still going to fundamentally tear at society. It's not sustainable at all. And we're going to see it, what it's going to mean in the UK. I'm originally from the UK too. Um, we have the health service there, the free health service called the NHS, and there are similar health services around the world. No matter how they're funded, they all require funding, and the funding comes one way or another from younger people working.
Yeah.
That inevitably it has to. And as the number of people working goes down and down and down, the viability of those health services becomes, well, less and less possible. It becomes less and less possible to maintain the quality and the standards that we have. So for the UK, I do have some data from where when I presented there not so long ago that for people aged 75 and over, 60% of all NHS resources go to the over 75s. And I've heard similar numbers for other countries too. So it's older people naturally who are requiring the vast majority of healthcare services. And the number of older people is not going to go down anywhere near as fast as the number of workers going down. So, that ratio is really going to be felt in the UK. Arguably it's already being felt, just because year by year, it, taxes could go down, or the ability, and you can see already tensions happening where people become dissatisfied about quality of services. The
Yeah.
roads are getting worse every year. Everything just feels negative. That's going to be life for decades until this situation is resolved.
What we're doing here, I think, is future cost stacking en masse, because we are stacking the costs onto future generations that currently perhaps governments don't want to face because they've got enough problems, and it might not be a sexy topic for them to get re-elected